and thank you for joining me for week 15 as I wake up and look at this topic for dramatically improving well-being. Continuing the theme in recent weeks on relational improvement, this week is particularly important or useful for those of you who are frustratedly single, but it does have some real benefit as well for those who are not. And I've been frustratedly single, I would say, most of my life. What I mean by that is it's not hard to create sex. That's pretty easy in a whole variety of ways. It's not hard to meet someone. What's devilishly hard for me, and this is somewhat about some of the unique ways that I'm built. What's very hard for me is to intentionally and consciously create a very high value that is sustainable and or goes up, which is conscious, in integrity, has quality time, and intimacy. Into me you see. I like that play on words. Into me you see, as opposed to a euphemism for sex. Sex is easy. Sex leading to betrayal is easy. Meaningless sex, if you do enough of it, you just go numb. It's easy. But into me you see, in a world of Twitter accounts and little text where everything's editing, it's very hard in many cases to see and be seen. And you need to have that foundation of into me you see going both ways before you can experience rapid growth. And this is why I want to talk about a user's manual. Now, you've heard about user's manuals your entire life. You've bought hundreds of items. Most of them have a user's manual. This phone has a user's manual. If you buy a light, and I'll show you my Hokey light setup in Thailand where I don't have my film studio. This is my Hokey light setup. A tripod, a Velcroed light, just the paper towel. The paper towel in some case will come with a user's manual. The light. This is the switch. Turn this on. I mean, do we really need a user's manual to press one button when it's the only button possible? And the answer is yes. There are going to be the occasional people that say, what's this button? Not many. But the point is, see, businesses, and here's a little hack. If businesses do it, consider that it is more profitable to do it than not do it. I.e., maybe 99.9% of people do know how to turn a light switch on and off. And so on that basis alone, it's not worth putting in the manual. But maybe if there is no manual, there are people who will sue the light company and claim to have an electric shock because there was no manual. And even though it's not terribly necessary for practical reason, I mean, when we're talking about a desk lamp, we all know how to turn that on and off. when you're talking about a $1 million lawsuit, the $1 million lawsuit costs less. Well, the manual costs less than the $1 million lawsuit. So, and the bad publicity, blah, 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 blah. Well, this is actually then a metaphor for why it can be good to have a user's manual in relationships. So maybe 99% of people, when you say, hey, you want to come over to my place, do know this is meaningless sex. But there's 1% that thinks this is starting to go to marriage. And the user's manual, oh, no, that's not what this is this. Okay, well, I don't want to waste time telling everyone, if people are so dumb, I don't want to waste time with a manual. But then your reputation is shot because you didn't take the time to care, you didn't take the time to get to know this and that and the other, and there's one person whose life falls apart, and she's the friend of this person, and now you're a complete jerk because you didn't take the time to say, this button does this does this, if you're a beginner, don't touch this, there's an electrical wire, da-da-da-da-da. And it doesn't show taste. It doesn't show caring. It doesn't show any quality that you say, oh, I want to have a great relationship with that person. And so the reputational costs, the potential legal costs, nobody wants, clear off all the residue of trauma and this and that and, get down to the core person. We're not going out there saying, how can I absolutely ruin as many people's lives as possible? No. And so if things that basic come with a user's manual and then, computer manual, the books for dummies, Microsoft for Dummies, they're 1.5 inches thick. Now here's the question, it's pretty obvious. Are you more complicated than a light? Are you more complicated than a toaster? Are you more complicated than a 747 aircraft? Do you think you have more or less toggles? And I'm going to argue that you are. I'm going to argue that it is harder to fully know you in all predictable ways, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, culturally, sexually, financially, than it is to know a 747. And I'm going to argue that it's easier to make mistakes. Notice you don't, how many 747s or A-27s or, the whole range of aircraft, how many are in the news today? How many are in the air? And how many are in the news because they just crashed? We go days after days with thousands and thousands of these things taking off in all weathers all over the place. It could be 100,000 in the air. And we don't hear any issue. That's a pretty high success rate for such a complicated piece of equipment. Now, when's the last time you heard of a breakup? In just your little circle of friends. Oh, so-and-so was doing this with so-and-so, that broke up so-and-so, had a drunken thing, and da-da-da-da-da, so-and-so, they lost their money, so-and-so ran off with it. You hear it all the time. And the question is, why? And I'm going to suggest it's because we're more complicated. But I'm also going to suggest that we've got this delusionary lens over that says, oh yeah, 747s. Of course we have to study for 4 years. Of course we have to read, 3,000 pages of manuals. Of course we have to understand flight dynamics. Of course we have to do this and that and the other. But relationships are easy. Well, it may be easy to stick it in. But it is not, apparently, look at the statistics, it is not apparently easy to see and be seen, to tell the truth and be honored for that truth, to need and have those needs be met, to express and have that expression desired, to create more sexual lust and beauty over time rather than less over time, to grow the relationship so that both people 2 years in think it's twice as good as when it began, as opposed to, what am I doing? Those things are not easy, according to the statistics. And what I'm going to suggest is they're not easy following the normal path. Meaning, if you want to dress up, pretend to be someone, have sex, then get together some more, have sex, get together some more, and then keep doing this, and then start failing to look good, and then fail some more to look good, and then, lie and do this, and then not talk about this, and then don't do this, and then work more than showing up for relationship, and then text. And if you want to follow the beaten path of relationship and end up with a stunning high growth relationship, I've got a bridge to sell you. And the problem is the premise that it's easy and the cultural path laid out. Both are flawed. It's not easy. We're not simple. And the path laid out to fly this bird into the air is so rudimentary that if 747s followed that path, we would hear about a crash every few minutes, because most of them wouldn't get off the ground. And if they did, when they landed, it would be into buildings and oceans on a regular basis. And if we said, what's the problem? It was, I guess it wasn't meant to be. This is one of the many obscuring comments, like a plane crashes into the water and we say, was the pilot trained? Did he get enough sleep? See, when's the last time a relationship crashed into the ground and we said, did the person get enough sleep? Were they fully trained? No. When relationships crash, it was meant to be. When planes crash, it's what went wrong. We don't say it was meant to be. You think we all should not be wearing seatbelts because fatalities were just meant to be? No, we have an incredible hypocritic. It's part, if you go back a few weeks, to chauvinism. The underlying value of masculine energy, things and money in this case, over feminine energy, emotions and relational experiences in this case, predicts that this is exactly what would happen. That we would study science, that we would prepare, that we would invest money, that we would train people in anything that has anything to do with masculine energy, because that's important. We can't have shareholders buying a $15 stock and then having that stock go down to $7. This is outrageous. We can't have that. What do we have to do? We have to improve the flight school. We have to send people to better flight school. We have to include this in the syllabus. We have to rewrite the textbooks so that this doesn't happen. Why? Because this horror of horror. Someone's little stock ticker goes from $14 down to $7, and all hell breaks loose. This is how we value the masculine. Now, meanwhile, someone's heart goes down from $4,600 down to $2, and that's life. Who gives a shit? It's just feelings. It's just the feminine. Who gives a shit? Well, I suggest that you and I, if you want to break the curve, as I do, and separate from these statistics, do give a shit. And the premise should be, that if it takes 4 years to fly a 747 with a 99.9% success rate, with a plane that doesn't have feelings, that doesn't have the time of the month, that doesn't argue with you on a theological basis as you say, you know, we have 2 gallons of fuel left. Could we agree to turn the flaps down and land this plane, please? No, I am not landing this plane until we hear what I have to say. How did that crash? We don't have planes that do that. But we have people that do that. That are burning their last savings in a business and da-da-da. And because they have feelings. And the problem is not with the feelings. The problem is with the dumb idea that it takes 4 years to learn to fly a plane that doesn't have feelings. But you should be able to fly a relationship for no reason at all, just because you woke up and had a feeling. Pilots don't just get into a 747 loaded to the hilt in the old Hong Kong airport that, you know, it was a dicey airport in the best of weather. They don't just get in there because they have a feeling. They want results. So they fuse feelings and science. Now we are so far away from honoring our relationships, the way we honor our jobs, the way we honor our money, the way we honor our physical, technical science. We are so far away from that. That chauvinism, it's going to need a huge shift before we're teaching children in high school about emotions. We're teaching children in high school about emotional biology. Oxytocin, cortisol, adrenaline, da-da-da-da-da. This touch does this. Before we're doing biofeedback in the colleges to say, okay, your oxytocin with a 5-second touch from someone you're attracted to goes up 200%. You over here, it goes up 300%. That means a 5-minute touch has a 30% higher impact for you over here. You have to be responsive to that. You need to know how that's affected you. You over here, 1 beer sets you off. You over here, it's 3 beers before you get to the same point of dissociation. We've got to understand our biology. And why we think the new iPad generation is more important than emotional education 101 is astounding. It is an astounding blind spot that can only be explained through chauvinism. Oh, there's just feelings. You know, there are other cultures, far more intelligent than ours, I might add, who say, that's just money. Bits of paper, who gives a shit? The stock went down, this and that and the other. These are feelings. This is you and me. This matters. Of course, why can't we have both? Why can't we learn best practices around money, around emotions, around relationships, etc.? So, a little bit of context now for a tiny drop in the bucket in the right direction. A user's manual. Should you have one? Yes. Yes, you should. So I'm going to show you 2 and what they do for me. Now, first of all, why? Why have a user's manual? Well, I've had thousands of conversations, mostly with women, but with men also. And not a single one has ever asked the most relevant questions for our flow in chemistry early in the relationship when it really matters. So, based on that statistic, you have a less than 2% odds that someone is going to directly ask and take responsibility for gathering from you the information they need to know if they're safe with you. Now, we're not talking about good and bad. We're not talking about are you a good or bad person. When you go into a restaurant and you have wheat allergies and you have dairy allergies and you're a vegetarian, see, if you don't know what to do, and thankfully we teach people this is basic. We don't do it in relationship, we do it in food. Again, material stuff is more valuable in our culture than emotion and psychology, so we do it in food. So we say, hello, I am a vegetarian. I have this. Or sometimes we forget. And most restaurants are not going to say, do you have any allergies? So we either get sick or we take the initiative. Most relationship partners, in fact, I have yet to meet one who leads with the questions that will tell me if I'm safe for them. Meaning, do they have an allergic reaction to this? Does this trigger a psychotic memory that they haven't trained me how to respond to? Does this trigger their rage that is irrational, except if you understood their childhood, but they didn't tell you their childhood, blah, 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 blah. Do they volunteer? Do they tell you? No. And the bizarre thing is, unlike allergies and this and that and the other, there is a premise that if it is meant to be, this horrible, unique application, because, I mean, do we really think that the universe is so materialistic, is so segmented, that it says planes follow the rules of science, the stock market follows the rules of science, fingers and blood follows the rule of science? There's just this one weird category called relationship, and it has nothing to do with science, has nothing to do with your skill, this and that and the other. It's what's meant to be or isn't meant to be. Do we really think the universe segments off the primary area in our life that is feminine and is failing for this unique protocol of what is and isn't meant to be? And do we really think that plane accidents would eradicate themselves if we just prayed to deities and said, well, okay, we got another crash from an untrained pilot. Buddha, please help me get through this one. Help this plane take off safely. Okay? Where's the next untrained pilot? The last one's dead. Fly off the plane. Okay. Oh, Buddha, what was wrong? I guess it was meant to be. Where's the next untrained pilot? Got any other planes left? See, we don't do this kind of stupidity, but we do it in relationship. We just stretch it out a little bit. I'm going to take a little break. Why? Of course, because that was meant to be. And then in 5 years, after it was meant to be that I take a break for 5 years so that I can learn blah, 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 I'm now going, now it's meant to be that this person came along and they said they loved cereal, and I like that cereal. It was meant to be. It's clearly interesting. This is a joke. So, the user's manual, why? No one is ever asking the questions they need to know. Everyone needs a user's manual. I've never met a person with a user's manual. I don't need a user's manual for a toaster. I don't need one for this light switch. But if I'm going to meet you and want to have a reasonable odds of success rapidly, and if I care enough to read it, which I do, I need you to have a user's manual, or my odds of success are low. Now, not to brag, but people have commented to me, older people who have talked with a lot of people, that I am one of the most direct, clear communicators that they've ever met. That I've asked questions that no one else in their entire life has asked. And that I understand them more than anyone else has ever understood them. This without a user's manual. And it's not enough information. There are still surprises. I had no idea that loud music brought on an earache that lasted 3 days. No idea. And you didn't think to comment on that. And I, because it's the only one I've experienced, I didn't ask. You didn't comment, I didn't ask. Well, now we've got 3 days of pain on our hands. This is no fun. It's no fun to start off a relationship. Well, that's just one example. There are millions. My toe is extra sensitive. Well, why didn't you tell me? You were, Well, I didn't want to seem high maintenance. Well, now you're high maintenance. I got to take you to the hospital because your toe's out of set. That's high maintenance. Why is it not high maintenance to tell someone so they can not step on your toe? This is a minefield. So why? Because it's necessary. Why? Because no one volunteers this information. Why? Because we're more complicated than a jet. And then what? What do you tell someone? Everything they need to succeed is my supposition. Oh, it's just natural. I feel this way, that. Do you have the same allergies whether you're with a blonde or a brunette? Okay, spell your allergies out. Why have them cook a 3-hour dinner and surprise you with all of your allergens? What a great surprise. Now you have to decide whether to ruin her sense of the magic because she's all in this whole mode of it was meant to be. Well, now if she's cooked all the wrong food, now it shakes that idea. Now she says, oh, it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be. I made a mistake. I guess it wasn't meant to be. No. You didn't ask about the allergens. You decided to surprise someone, a dumb idea before you know anything about them. You decided it was meant to be. It could be if we're intelligent, and it will not be if we're not intelligent. It's that simple. And if we are intelligent, we'll learn pretty quickly if we're going to bring each other happiness. And if we do, it's pretty intelligent to stay together. It's not rocket science. So what? Everything they need to know to succeed. Allergens, sleep patterns. I need to be completely still when I sleep. I need to be on my back when I sleep. Oh, honey, let me pull you into a side embrace. Well, that's where my sore shoulder is. I have a sore shoulder. I've had it. It comes off from time to time. I snore, or I wake up when other people snore. Spell it out. What? Everything you need to logistically navigate intelligently with two people who care about one another. My girlfriend has restless legs, meaning that probably one night in 7 at the moment when we met, it was more. It's an emotionally based traumatic memory thing. And so it's gone down. It used to be every single night. Now it's about 1 in 7, meaning there's a 600% healing process going in place. But she's still, once a week, her legs start flailing around the bed, whatever. I can't sleep in that. Oh, she told me on the first time. We said, okay, how are we going to handle this when restless legs? I said, well, if I'm not too tired, I'll hold you and we'll cuddle and this and that and the other. If there's anything emotionally coming up, we'll talk about it. If it's just this and that and I'm exhausted, you'll sleep on the other mattress over here. And you'll just, if you notice that's coming up, you'll just quietly go over there and I'll get some sleep. That's how we're going to handle it. Work for you? Do you feel abandoned? Okay, you feel a little abandoned. How about what if the dog was here with you? Okay. Good plan. Is it working? Did you feel cared about last night? Yes, it is working. Solved. Logistical interface, intelligence, kindness, sorting it out. So that's what you like to do. Go back a few. This is where your list of 40 ways to make you feel completely and totally loved comes in. Things you would like to be appreciated for that no one appreciates you for. I'm always so polite when I pull out the driveway, but nobody appreciates me for that. Honey, I appreciate you for being so polite that you pulled out the driveway. You feel appreciated? Yeah, I do. You're the first person in my whole life who's ever appreciated that. Hooray! I'll do it next week as well. Teach each other what to do. How do you do it? You make a list. Let's look at, this is the short version. So we have 2 versions here. The big version and the short version. I built the big version after being so irritated that even my best friends knew absolutely nothing and didn't know that they knew absolutely nothing. So I don't even think this one has a table of contents, but this is just little topics like sailboat picnics, something I enjoy doing. I invite you to go sailing with me in my 2-person sailboat with a gourmet picnic. Can't get more simple than that. I love the way the pickles, dill, and goat cheese is sharpened with the mustard, basil, and tomatoes. Exquisite. I'm so glad you came up with the idea of buying this little boat, little snippet, little montages that says this is a way you could relate to me, so that if someone wants to relate to you in a slam dunk, guaranteed to succeed way, they know how to do it. So I think I've broken it down to, we have cultures, we have uncommon facts, invitations. These are all things I'd love to do with someone. Peak experiences I've had, peak experiences I'd like to have. So this is the right-left brain balance version, because I'm a lot too left brain, thanks to our culture. And so first I wrote this one, and let's see what's our culture. I wrote this a few years back. Where is the damn table of contents? Well, anyway, I have a content somewhere. Here it is. So let's see. We have part 1, the basics of connecting. In a nutshell, deal breakers, life story, key ingredients in a great relationship for me. What I can offer you as a lover partner. What can you offer me? A compatible partners for me. An ideal friend. Key personas, parts of my personality that come out in different situations and what situations bring them out. Core strengths that I have, dreams and ambitions. Monogamy, drinking, smoking, and drugs. It's an important area. I don't smoke. Well, I smoke the occasional cigar. I've never been drunk. Don't really like being around drunkenness, but enjoy the taste of wine. Drugs. At the time, not at all interested. Now I'm interested in psychedelics in ceremonial situations, mushrooms, etc. Logistics and routine, my love languages, animals, Enneagram, astrology, fun ways to explore together. Do we connect? Troubleshooting tips. Something's going wrong. What's it likely to be? Worldview, relationship paradigms, value hierarchies, life lessons. Control, money, paradoxes, the meta-conversation, rants about my world, common misperceptions of me, embracing our feelings, sexuality and sensuality, Asperger's syndrome. I have several Asperger's tendencies. Avoiding pain in relationship, questions and answers, part 3. More information. My bodies, things I am not you would know. Being me, a diary of thoughts, miscellaneous reflections, a taste of my humor. Immediacy. Optional advice for women. Please don't read this unless you want advice. This is mostly for American women. They get uppity about giving advice without invitation. Rebuffing and relationship culture in my league. Community service, relationship stories. Why I would date myself, why you may want to date me, savior complex, what makes me feel totally loved, relevant statistics, resources to support our relationship, and closing thoughts. So this is 414 pages, and it is not complete. It's a basic human user's manual. And here's the thing. I have to do most of the work to create this. This is a service, which is one of the areas you'll immediately find that the culture is fucked up. Because if you do $10, $20, $30, $50,000 worth of therapy, if you write thousands of pages of journals, if you read dozens or hundreds of books and you learn who you are, number one, that's a lot of work. And you got to do that. They spend $1 billion developing a new jetliner, getting to know how every little bit behaves in different wind and temperature conditions, expansion, contraction, etc., because they want the damn plane to hold together. This is important when it comes to money. Relationships broke up, that just happens. No, it doesn't just happen. It happens when two people are so careless in a community and culture that is so careless that not a single person bothered to even create a predictive model, let alone teach each other the model, let alone do something about it. It doesn't just happen. It happens when we are lazy, when we're obsessed about getting the new Reeboks, but not obsessed about learning the latest passive and active listening technology to hear what our partner has to say so that we understand them, so that when we influence them, we push them in the direction that they want to go, as opposed to pushing them off course and then getting all upset with them when they don't like being around us because they find they're always off course, because we're giving unsolicited advice without even learning who they are. And we don't want to hear that it doesn't work for us. So this is basic choices. Do we care enough about someone to diverge? So first of all, you have to learn all that. That's work. Duh. Everything is. You want to advance something, you want to break away from the norm, you have to do work. And secondly, you've got to put it into words. Thirdly, you got to type it out. All of this is work. Now, I know an intelligent partner when they are grateful, curious, and respectful that I have done this to support our relationship. I know I'm dealing with an idiot who hasn't thought it through and who's not very committed and serious. When they look at this and say, oh my gosh, I have to read that? See, on the one hand, you say, see, what's the problem? It's a problem of imbalance. So they've got to spend 6 hours reading it, and you've got to do, $20,000 worth of therapy. In my case, it's $150,000. You've got to read 100 books. You've got to write it, which takes an entire month. You've got to print it. You've got to prepare it. You've got to do a cover art. You've got to do this all so that the relationship has better odds of success. You have to do literally 1,000 times more work to provide this gift to the relationship than the partner who has to sit down and has to, again, you're dealing with suffering here, to sit down and read it. And so if their eye is, and then you look at this like, I have to do this, as opposed to, wow, look what you did. This is an example of self-centered self-sabotage. It's paradoxical, meaning you'd think that if people were really self-centered, they would want to be with a hardworking partner. Because hardworking partners get through the relationship a lot further than lazy partners. So an intelligent person says that is a committed partner. That is a good communicator. That is an intelligent person. That is a person that is willing to walk it alone to advance the meme of healthy relationships. I am lucky to have the chance of reading this. Look how many months of suffering this can save me. And what can I do to reciprocate? How can I tell you, let me do this? This is intelligence. I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be in abundance for you. Somewhere between 1% and 3% of the population has the intelligence, the move outside themselves, like I have to read something to, wow, let me move outside myself and honor what you have done for me and our relationship. Let me think about the logistics, like, wow, this tells me exactly how to make love and not make love if I want a happy partner. This tells me how far apart our love-making styles are. We are 50% apart. This tells me I shouldn't just expect it to flow, and maybe we should have a conversation. Okay, that's a nice bit of information to come into this. So before we have sex, let's talk about this. My style is like this, yours is like this, that, and the other. How do you think we can fit there? This is not about you have to do it my way. This is about, this is what makes me happy. What makes you happy? And do they flow? Is there a breath in there? Ideally, you make time to talk. That of course brings into the next thing, which is time. Now, my girlfriend is Filipina, and I decided to compromise in two ways. First of all, I wanted to bring in right and left brain and have images. Secondly, I wanted a more taster type thing. Now, so how? You just pick a bunch of topics you want someone to know, and you list who you are. The grammar doesn't have to be perfect. The spelling, use a spell checker. The format, watch a YouTube video on how to create a book on CreateSpace. Number one, if you want a hard copy. But you don't need a hard copy. You can do a PDF. You can scan little sketches if you do sketches. You can take pictures of things if you want pictures. And you can write these topics in handwriting or text or both. You can do a collage, scan it, create a PDF file. I have two on my computer. And anytime you're with someone where you want the relationship to be conscious and successful, you send them and say, these are doorways into succeeding and flowing with me. If you want to do that consciously, please read this, share your thoughts, tell me as much about you as you can, and we'll take it from there. This is a great filter, meaning the 3% you have left are people that are unusually confident, unusually intelligent, unusually committed, have unusual amounts of time, and have unusual amounts of caring and attention to detail. Now, does that sound like the kind of person you want to be in an amazing relationship with? It's a wonderful filter. The people that say, oh my God, what a bunch of work. I would much rather guess all of this stuff, get it wrong half the time, get into massive fights at all the disappointment about getting it wrong, and then have a 6-month lengthy divorce and blah, 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 blah. That's so much more efficient than just knowing this stuff coming off. This is dumb. It's just dumb. So I created for the, my dating in Asia, images are more important. Sentences need to be easy, translatable. And so that's the what, anything, along those lines. You can reread my table of contents. The how, as I've just said, sketches, anything. You are not trying to look good. An intelligent person, meaning if you ever sent me something like this, first of all, your intelligence goes up 90% because you are so rare. My partner is the only person that I've ever met of all the people I've talked with about this who's actually done this. Well, I knew I had someone unusual then, in a good way. So you're going to deal with someone who's appreciative. Wow. And if you're not, the question becomes why? Why do you want to relate to your fantasy of who I am rather than to who I am? Why do you want to fall madly in love and in lust and then play out this whole script of, I guess it wasn't meant to be, when you could have found out what was incompatible on the first day? Why? Why is that more valuable? Do you like disappointment? Do you believe love cannot last? Is it just about the whole pain, angst, and drama of romance? What is it? Because you can do that. But what I tell people, if they say they're interested in growing, is You've never had someone give you a user's manual in your entire life, have you? No, I haven't. Do you think anyone in this culture is ever going to give you a user's manual in your entire life, regardless of how intelligent it is? Probably not. So this is your one chance to go into a new way of relating. And you will never have this chance again. Correct. Are you the kind of person where that's exciting? Or is that like, oh, that's not usual. That's all I need to know to not do it. Meaning, I've never walked on that mountain trail again, so I'm not going to. If I had walked on it, then I would do it. But I never have, so I'm not going to. I've never done a relationship like this. Therefore, I will never do a relationship like this, even if it makes sense. That is not an adventurous spirit. So we've got a low growth mindset. A high growth mindset is, let me take an analysis of the risks and the rewards. Okay, I'm going to have to do about 20 hours of work to read this and talk to you about it. If I do that, I will have an experience of starting a relationship with you that I will never have any other way. And there is a possibility, because it seems perfectly reasonable, users' manuals have been working forever in areas that we think are important in technology, etc., that it actually might help in people, and it does. My risk is 20 hours. My upside is a phenomenal way of relating I've never experienced before. My downside is we don't fit well, and we learn that up front, and we get on with our lives. It's not a big downside, is it? Because it normally takes 6 months to learn that. Now we've learned it in a week. So it's not even really a downside. Or maybe the real downside is I'd have to get off my ass and realize that relationships are not just meant to be, that they're not going to happen unless I make them happen, and I'm too lazy to do that, so I'm just going to give up on relationship because I don't want to do it. Well, that could be a depressing downside if that's who you are, but if that's who you are, you understand it and it depresses you, change it. Get to work. Don't be that person. Be the person that does the work. So the result, I'll just talk about it in 3 stories. The woman that knew me more than any other woman in my entire life, my best friend, a partner that was so exquisitely attuned to me and vice versa, that people would come up to us, strangers, and say, wow, the way you sit together, the way you talk together, the way you function together, I have never seen anything like it. This is so beautiful. You're such a beautiful couple. And then they'd walk away, strangers. That woman, after achieving that state, I wrote this book. And I gave it to her. This is not a book for sale, by the way. This is a good book to give to someone special. A best friend, partner, a son, a daughter. I gave it to her. And I said, how much did you learn about me that you didn't know after being the person who has known me more than any other human being on earth, and after spending almost 24/7 with me for 5 years, in which we're completely transparent and talk about all of our thoughts and feelings, how much did you know about me from this book that you didn't know from all of that after 5 years? And this takes you a few days to read. 30%. That's the result. So if you are ever fortunate enough to have a Francine in your life who does show the interest to know every little bit about you and cares about it, and loves this and loves that and da-da-da-da-da, and listens and talks for 5 years, 24/7. You can write a book like this that's going to tell her 30% more. That's going to tell him 30% more, maybe 50% more. Maybe you're not as talkative as I am, but you can write it. Maybe 80% more. This can cover a lot of data. It's a one-time effort. That's the other thing. I spent a month, 8 years ago, writing this book. It's available for the rest of my life. I can edit it. It has a few things. There's about 10% of it that's changed in the last 8 years. Or I can just fill that in verbally. So that's result. This book, I was in a crisis, trauma. My therapist had abused me spiritually and sexually while on psychedelics. A big no-no. It's one of the most vulnerable times. I'm absolutely devastated. And I'm single. I don't have the depth of rapport and attunement, the deep feminine energy to heal that kind of pain is very difficult to find in the United States. So I head to Philippines. And I don't feel like I'm a good partner to be in a relationship with because I'm too volatile and I need to focus on myself. I'm in survival mode. So I send out 100 letters. This is what I am. This is what I'm not. This is what you can expect from me. This is what you cannot expect from me. I would like to spend a month with someone who enjoys these kinds of conversations, doing these kinds of things, connecting in these ways. And I'm not going to marry you, and I'm not going to have children, and I'm not going to pay you. I want someone who wants this and who will grow in that environment. And here is a little book to help you get to know me. It was a delightful woman who, she was an artist, and she could see the pictures. She's a right-brained person, and she could see herself in these pictures. So the day I arrived, she and her family met me at the airport. She met me at my hotel. And she had no fear. She felt she knew me, and we had an incredibly healing and transformational month. That's just one person with this book. Now, of course, it's a complete waste of time if you take the time to describe another person. I could have described, a lonely person who wanted to get married, who was rich, who was this, who wanted a family, blah, 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 blah. No. I'm the exact opposite. I am not what your culture says is the good catch. I am not looking for a wife. I will not have children. I am not going to pay your family. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I like talking about difficult concepts and ideas I know that are not very popular. I am not Catholic. I am not this. I'm this. This is who I am. Do you see value in that? You see, and when you describe exactly who you are, there's a very good reason that most people will reject you. Because you're not compatible with them. That's beautiful. That is perfect. That is what should be happening. In other words, that filtering effect that I talked about, the result, that 97% of people will disengage for a whole variety of reasons, creates an enormous degree of space for you to focus in and invest deeply, the 80-20 principle. Less than 20% of your relationships will deliver 80% of the value. This woman who met and spent a month with me, just from reading this book, was in the 3% of the 100 letters that was really interested. And she changed my life. But just as importantly, I changed her life. I changed her life. It was a significantly valuable relationship for both of us. And that's the goal. The goal is to get through this morass of statistical horror, the morass of it was meant to be and wasn't meant to be, and concretely start practicing approaches that take you right in to those very productive experiences and relationships for both people, where both people end them richer, stronger, healthier than they began. That is a good relationship, whether it lasts a week, a month, a year, a decade, a lifetime. And hanging in there for 60 years of hell and horror and mediocrity is a nightmare. Even though you have succeeded at that most mediocre of goals, hanging in there. So that's the idea for this week. And I take the time to give context because for those of you that care, again, 1, 2, 3%, I want to give you the mental understanding in such a mental culture about how this can change a life and why that matters. It's safe to say that one of the most important months that was followed by several more months of my life would not have happened without this book. It's safe to say I would never experience that in my entire life without this book. Is that valuable enough to you? Is this part of the 20% and the 80-20% principle that you care about? Thank you for watching. And let me know. I would love to know if you create a user's manual. I would love to know if your partner appreciates it. I would add that if you've ever done business, you know you don't write the contract after the relationship is committed. You write the contract of expectation. It's not a signed contract in a relationship term, but it's a contract of expectation. You don't get together and fall madly in love with a Thai woman and then a month in say, oh, by the way, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to have 3 lovers next month. By the way, I'm never going to have children. And next month, I'm not going to pay your father the traditional sinsat to marry you. In fact, I'm not even going to get married. In fact, I'm going to do that. You don't do that and expect good results. You say, this is who I am. Who are you? How do those fit? Do you think your mind will be at peace with this? Your heart will be at peace with this? Your body will be at peace with this? Can we marriage heart, mind, and body in an intelligent, conscious, and kind way with zero deception? Can we do it? Or is the kindest thing to say, thank you for telling me about yourself, and I don't want to hurt you by being me in relationship to what's you? So I was able to give this book to my very best friend after, I think we were 3 years into our 5-year relationship. I say very best friend because sex was a very low element. We cuddled constantly and were incredibly sensual. It just wasn't a sexual relationship. But it was the most valuable relationship. The lovers we both had in those times were secondary to an individual who will take the time to know and be known at that depth with that level of care and sensitivity. It is extraordinary. And this can open the doorway a little bit in that direction. And here's the great thing. Let's say no one wants to read your book. You write a beautiful user's manual. You know who you are on the other side of that. And that's a start. Because if you don't know who you are, if you haven't taken the time to really understand the way you like to begin a relationship, what makes a great date, what really is a bottom line deal breaker for you, no matter what? What hurts you the most? What brings you joy? If you haven't written about your childhood experiences and how they correlate, you do not know yourself. Or more accurately, your left brain, who has to be the one typing it all out, may not fully understand your right brain, a common expression of chauvinism. They're just my feelings. I don't need to understand them. That's just the feminine in me. She's not as valuable as the masculine in me. I need to make witty remarks and jokes. I don't need to understand my own feelings. You will understand your feelings. And that will bring your feminine into a state of dignity in your own relationship with yourself. And you will have a powerful tool. You know, if I was a woman, I would be into this like mad. Women are not usually interested in me unless they want to have sex with me. So if they're in lust and or attached, yeah, they want to read it, but then they're not in an honest state. Meaning if someone wants to connect with me, they're reading all this like, how can I use that to connect with them? It's not honest. You don't want that person reading how to connect and manipulate you. You want the person who wants to get to know you. But women do have a profound edge. I have helped several women create amazing websites where that kind of lead a man into their world. And one of the great frustrations for men is, I don't know what to do. I'd love to get to know her, etc. She's not giving me direction. I don't know what she likes to eat. I don't know how to start talking with her. I don't know. You give this to a man, and sure, you're going to have a bunch of people say, oh, too much work. Idiots. Get rid of them. Oh, she likes this. I could do that. I could do that. I would enjoy doing that. No, I wouldn't enjoy doing that. I should tell her that. That's fun. Knowing she likes that 10 out of 10, I would like to do that. It's not really my thing, but I could do that. I wonder if she's the kind of woman that would actually like understanding me too. You know, there's a lot of men hurting by not being given a doorway in and not having anyone listen to them. There's a lot of men hurting in that state. So I'm not. I have an absolutely fabulous partner who loved reading this one and who is laboriously, with varying degrees of reluctance when I tease her about it, making her way through the big one. But the big one is not too necessary because she's so responsive. All I have to do is say, this is hurting my feelings. Oh, tell me about it. It would really be helpful if you would help me like this to feel more grounded. Okay, I'd love to. My neck is hurting. Be willing to help me massage? Yes, we're both very responsive in that. All she has to do is say, I'm feeling a bit lonely. Who in you is feeling lonely? My 6-year-old. What does she want? She wants a cuddle and attention. Would she like it on the bed or this? Oh, on the bed. Okay. You want to be spooned? Or how would you like? Okay. How's your 6-year-old feeling now? Oh, she's so happy. Great. Anything else I can do? I kiss her on the forehead, my beautiful 6-year-old. Oh, she's so happy. Wonderful. Done. There's no shaming. There's no judgment. There is just an effective, rapid path to getting to the only dissatisfied persona in the psyche, responding to it immediately, watching it light up, and then bring its gifts back to the relationship. And the user's manual can be a clue. As I said, she's the only woman who was willing to write one for me, and it told me all I needed to know to love her beautifully. And I've been doing it ever since. It's my favorite thing to succeed at loving her. And she gave me the map. And every time her face lights up in wonder and joy, I know why I do it. It's like, that's the most beautiful point of my day. I succeeded at making this woman enraptured. What could be more important? Thank you for watching.